Okay, since I am a bit of a slow reader and I don't know when I'm going to get through all of these, even though two of them are really, really tiny, I thought I would just talk about the books that I'm reading at the moment. I tend to read a lot at the same time. This is actually pretty good for me. I'm only reading 4 books right now, and I flit around quite a lot. So it's not uncommon for me to have 10 books that I'm reading at the same time. So, like I said, we're doing pretty good here with only 4. The first one that I started ages ago and I've really, really been loving is East of Eden by John Steinbeck. And I actually put it down for quite a while now. I'm about a third of the way in, I think, and I love John Steinbeck's work. His work feels very immersive to me, very, very good at capturing the humanness of situations and the fallibility of everyone, and it's just, I find it very powerful, I find it very moving, I find it, the writing is just really works for me, but I also find it very intense, and so I'm reading this 700-page book and it's all just feels like a bit of an ordeal the whole time. Even though there are also bits in it that I find really, really hilarious as well. So that's been being read for a good long time now, and hopefully I'll get through it before the end of this year. Then the next one that I have on the go, that's been on the go since last year, even though it's super tiny, is Why I Write by George Orwell. This one, very political, like most of his non-fiction, actually like most of his everything. And I'm really liking it so far. There's a lot of sass all through this whole book. He seems like a really interesting person, partly because he seems so at odds with himself. He talks very negatively a lot of the time about this middle-class intelligentsia, but at the same time it's super obvious that he is part of that, and then also struggles against that, and I'm really enjoying this. There are a lot of things that I feel are still relevant today, and there are a lot of things that are interesting to see how he thinks they will develop and how they have or haven't developed in that way. Once I get through that one, I have 2 other George Orwells of this kind of size to read as well, if I need any more political sass. The third book that I'm currently reading is another Amélie Nothomb, Stupeur, et tremblements, and I'm liking her style. As usual, I think it's pretty fair to say that I like this writer. This is my 4th book by her now, and I find it a pretty good level for me reading along in the French, even though I am still having to check things like I've said before in previous videos, but I like it. It's not so difficult that it's a pain. It's not so dull that I want to put it down like Candide, which was okay to read, but very repetitive and like, okay, I get the point, alright. Similarly to Haruki Murakami, I find Amélie Nothomb to have a lot of similar themes, some similar characterization and that kind of thing, but it's still enjoyable. So recently, as in the last few days or something, I've picked up Feminism is for Everybody by Bell Hooks, and that's been on my list for a little while now, but also it's now the Feminist Orchestra's pick for the next 2 months. The Feminist Orchestra being the book club run by Jean and Lauren, and I've picked it up as an ebook, and it's pretty short, looks really accessible from what I've seen. I've only read the prologue and a bit of the first chapter, I think, so far. So I haven't got really far into it, but I kind of feel like I know what to expect. I'm seeing a lot of themes that are similar in this to Angela Davis's writing, and also to Renée Edo-Lodge's book. And one of those overarching themes seems to be this broadening of the definition of feminism, which is really interesting because it's not just gender issues anymore. It also links race and class and disability and these other things as well, and it's interesting to see that kind of more intersectional view of feminism. It kind of feels a bit like it's broadening out. I don't have a problem with that, it's just interesting to see that. I also find it interesting the way that Bell Hooks has talked about feminism also being anti-sexist exploitation, something along those lines, because that actually correlates to something that the French YouTuber Emmy has talked about before, and she's said that she doesn't feel like you can be a feminist without also being vegan, which sounds bizarre, but listening to her reasoning, her whole idea is basically that you have this sexist exploitation of animals and it's speciesist to separate these things and all of that. And I don't know if I subscribe to that, I haven't really given much thought to it, but it's just interesting to see how all of these things overlap. So I think that's going to be a really good read going forward. Hopefully I'll finish that pretty soon, but I do have a lot of other things going on, so I don't know. And I might add more books to this currently reading pile, we'll just have to see. But if you are reading any of those as well, or find any of that interesting, definitely leave some comments down below, because I'm really happy to talk about any of that stuff. And if you have any suggestions for what else I should add to my currently reading list that's already probably a bit too much at the minute, then feel free, because I'm always happy to add to it. Anyway, I will see you again next time. Bye!